In a secret, forbidding land, modern science is poised on the edge of a breakthrough. An ancient animal is inspiring an improbable dream. "3,000 years ago, a survivor of the massive extinction that occurred at the end of the last ice age mysteriously disappeared from this lost corner of the far north. Now the Soviet Musk Ox is back on the Siberian tundra, and these living relics are yielding important clues to the distant past. It may even help scientists bring the Ice Age back to life. The circumpolar top of the world is a frozen ring, gripping North America and Russia together. It's a vast, barren, unforgiving realm. Deep in the heart of Russia, the Taimyr Peninsula in Siberia may be the most remote Arctic location of them all. A few years ago, you couldn't come here if you wanted to. This was the Soviet Union, the workers' paradise that went wrong. Power was centralized in the Kremlin in Moscow. If you stepped out of line there, you got a one-way ticket to the gulags of the Taimyr, trying to stay warm building factories and military bases across the north. This was the land behind the Iron Curtain, a secret battlefield of the Cold War. But the rise and fall of the Soviet Union was only a second in time for this place. Long before the Iron Curtain, there was the ice wall. 10,000 years ago in the late Pleistocene epoch, this was an Ice Age oasis for musk ox. Musk ox and woolly mammoths were the most numerous prehistoric animals on the Taimyr Peninsula. Here, musk ox were the cold weather batteries of the Ice Age, conserving energy when the temperatures plunged. When they found food, they hardly moved at all. In the glacial cold, musk ox depended on soft underwool called kiviot to keep them warm in howling winter winds. 8 times warmer than sheep's wool, kiviot was the planet's best natural insulator. This huge coat also created an illusion of immense size. Beneath the thick wool, musk ox ranged in size between a cow and a goat. They kept to themselves, herding together for protection and facing predators like the saber-toothed tiger with a wall of horns. For 1 million years, this perfect biological design kept musk ox alive, ranging as far south as Spain and the American Great Plains. At the end of the Ice Age, the great ice sheets melted, flooding vast sections of the planet. On the Taimyr, most Pleistocene animals died, including the woolly mammoth. Somehow, musk ox survived. Then, 3,000 years ago, they too mysteriously disappeared from this part of the world. Nobody knows why. But in the high Canadian Arctic, musk ox continued to thrive. In 1974, in a curious twist of fate, Canada gave the Soviet Union a gift of 10 musk ox. Today, there are more than 2,000 musk ox back on the Taimyr. It's almost as if they never left. Now the reintroduced musk ox are teaching scientists here about life during the Ice Age, especially the extinct woolly mammoth.
And the connection of musk oxen and mammoths is of course a very good connection, because if you take a look at present-day musk oxen, their fur, their underfur, and you compare it with that of the woolly mammoth, which we discovered on the Taimyr Peninsula, you see there are a lot of similarities. And I want to find out why the mammoths died out 10,000 or 8,000 years ago, and why the musk oxen could survive on the Taimyr Peninsula till 3,000 years maybe.
Dutch paleontologist Dick Maul is a legend among Ice Age researchers. Dick and French explorer Bernard Buis study Ice Age animals pulled from the Siberian permafrost and kept frozen in a unique cave made of ice blocks in the town of Hatanga.
Why did this animal become extinct on the Taimyr Peninsula about 3,000 years BP? And after their reintroduction are doing so well? Was it the virus which causes the extinction? Was it the climate which causes the extinction? Was it hunting which causes the extinction? We don't know. We know a lot about the mammoths, but we do not know exactly how they behaved, how huge were the herds they were living in with 30 animals or maybe 100. Did these herds gather together like the musk oxen? How were mammoths living during the Pleistocene? How were musk oxen living during the Pleistocene? So there are many mysteries which needs to be solved.
Bernard Bouy and Dick Maul are using the musk ox to unlock the secrets of the Ice Age. They're here on a bold adventure, traveling back in time to find out if it's possible to clone an extinct woolly mammoth. Bernard Bouy knows Siberia is not an easy place to work. In this rugged, remote landscape, there are always delays. Bernard has been organizing North Pole expeditions for the past decade. Today, he's chartered a helicopter to scout the territory, searching for clues to life during the Ice Age. But for the moment, he can't go anywhere. The pilots would rather fish than fly. Finally, the helicopter rises over the most northerly trees in the world, flying back to Hatanga.
You cannot come here and not be interested by the mammoth fauna, because when you come here, step by step, it happens like a virus, you know? Step by step, I become more and more interested.
The dream of creating an urban Arctic world died with the Soviets, and at first glance, nothing much is happening in Hatanga. The Cold War soldiers have gone home, life is peaceful, or so it appears. Beneath the quiet surface, this is a land of dreams and obsessions. In Hatanga, Bernard and Dick have both a below-ground ice cave and an above-ground lab, where visiting scientists come to view an impressive collection of ancient musk ox and mammoth bones.
Yes, this one is all one bag.
In the lab, Dick Maul shows French molecular biologist Régis de Brun his favorite musk ox sample.
It's kind of a musk ox puzzle.
Régis hopes to extract DNA from the bones. It may prove Ice Age musk ox were the same as today's.
There's a nice row of the short neck. This is the best specimen that was collected in the year 2000. This is typical for a musk ox. And first of all, I thought, oh, maybe it's not so old, because the horn sheets were attached to the skull, which is unusual. So what we did, and you can see it here, we broke off a small piece of bone, brought it to the university in Groningen for a radiocarbon date, and it became clear that this specimen was more than 36,000 years old at the time the animal died. Keep it in your hand, it's quite heavy. So if you want to do some research on musk oxen, on the DNA of the musk oxen, then you are welcome to sample this one, because we can easily take away a small piece. And I don't know if you need a lot of...
No, only half a gram or something like that is enough.
So you are welcome to do.
Okay, it's great.
Yeah.
This one's really nice.
Yeah, but this is one of the most beautiful specimens we have.
Driven by their obsession with the past, Bernard and Dick search for answers. Can the Siberian tundra support other Ice Age animals besides the musk ox? Can they actually bring a woolly mammoth back to life? For now, the treasures locked away in their ice cave are as close to the Ice Age as they can get. Built during the Cold War, the ice cave is a labyrinth of underground tunnels cutting through the permafrost. Traditionally a storehouse for reindeer and fish, many say it used to hold nuclear missiles. Now the ice cave stores one of the world's finest collections of Pleistocene bones. Each field season, the scientists collect an ancient harvest from the tundra. Skulls of musk ox, horses, steppe bison, mammoths, and mammoth tusks are all kept here. This is where the scientists study the best samples.
When you work on mammoth or when you work on musk ox, you have to understand the environment. But to understand the environment, you have to catch the specimen in the best condition. This cave, it's a perfect area, it's a perfect place to do this, because it's built in the permafrost. The temperature is more or less plus 4 or 5 degrees with a constant temperature, between 15 and 10 below zero.
The prize they seek is a frozen mammoth carcass containing living strands of DNA. In the last few years, Bernard and Dick have transferred 2 mammoths into the ice cave, the Yarkov and the Hook mammoth. Neither one turned out to be paleontology's elusive Holy Grail, but they have revealed other secrets.
So Dick, did you find something interesting?
Yes. You want to know what this animal was eating? Its last meal?
Of course.
Here it is.
No.
Yes.
Did you? Oh, already?
Yeah, look, all vegetation remains. You see the soft tissues of the mammoth here, and there's a huge piece of skin here.
Very interesting.
But what we need to find is a carcass of a musk ox. From musk oxen so far, as I know, there are no soft remains, soft parts preserved in the permafrost. Because of the reintroduction of musk oxen on the Taimyr Peninsula, when we come across something like a carcass of a musk ox, our people in the teams will tell it's a present day one, because it's so difficult to tell what is of a recent animal or what is of an animal of 10,000 years ago. So what we can stress is that the reintroduction on the Taimyr Peninsula was very successful. The animal became extinct in this area 3,000 years before present, but it's causing a problem for our research.
The musk ox survive and grows up in this environment now means that if we are successful in cloning a mammoth, we can find an area which is enough for some specimen.
Cloning a mammoth. If it does happen, it will be here in Siberia. Out on the tundra, the Ice Age, it seems, never did disappear. And just beneath the permafrost, it remains alive. Something has frightened the musk ox. The dominant bull is worried. 10,000 years ago, it was a dangerous world for both the young and old. The big bulls protected the herd, guarding a good patch of food like a fortress. Musk ox were hunted mostly by great Siberian wolves, and perhaps something even more dangerous. The first humans who arrived here at the end of the Ice Age were nomadic hunters. Musk ox and giant reindeer provided rich hunting grounds for these distant cousins to the first indigenous peoples in North America. Perhaps these hunters killed off the musk ox 3,000 years ago. Over time, the people of the Taimyr Peninsula became reindeer herders. Domestication has made Ice Age reindeer smaller, but more numerous. Until the Soviets reintroduced musk ox, only reindeer and reindeer herders lived year-round on the tundra, just as they do today. In their traditional stories, extinct woolly mammoths live on as creators of the world. Canadian anthropologist Dr. David Anderson, who studies the Dolgan people, has found an ancient warning here.
Dolgan people in this part of Eastern Taimyr are very reverent about the earth. They don't like digging into the earth. And in fact, they say that anyone who's been hired by the state to dig an underground cellar, their family then suffers deaths or illness and so forth. People have also said that it's very bad to dig into the ground to bring out bones and mammoth ivory and so forth, and that you can only take things out of the land if it's on the surface. And the reason why they say that is that this part of the north of Taimyr, we're a lot of shamans here, and that the ground is very sort of charged with this shamanic presence.
In this unforgiving polar environment, reindeer herders have maintained a precarious, isolated way of life for thousands of years. Now they've seen musk ox return to the tundra along with another new breed, scientists digging in the permafrost for an elusive prize. To the Dolgan at least, resurrecting the Ice Age is a dangerous dream. Northeast of Hatanga, Canadian anthropologist David Anderson is traveling into the world of the Dolgan people, reindeer herders who live year-round on the tundra. Studying their traditional stories, David wants to learn why they believe extinct Ice Age animals should be left buried in the ground. On his way out to the tundra, David stops in the village of Novorodne to visit a Dolgan family with relatives among the reindeer herders. Zina Portiaga tells David about musk ox and shows him some kiviot, perhaps the world's most expensive wool that she's gathered on the barrens.
The first time we saw musk ox, some people were afraid and other people were curious. We didn't know what they were doing here. We still don't know. But their wool is very good quality, like down.
The musk ox seems to be, the way that people talk about it, it's something that's very alive. They respect its vibrancy. It's something that it isn't mythic in its world-creating features, but it is something that's found a place within this ecosystem. The mammoth is a completely different example.
You should never dig into the ground. Bad things happen. An old man that was there when Bernard dug up the Yarkov mammoth, he died soon afterwards, along with his brother. It's because they dug into the earth and disturbed the shamans.
If in North America the raven is one of the creators of the world, in this part of Siberia it's the mammoth. They etch the earth with their tusks in order to create the rivers. The places where the mammoth stepped, this is the place where lakes are formed. And they're thought of as the creators of landscapes. You don't treat the remains of these world creators lightly.
Although a thick fog obscures the riverbanks, making it dangerous to navigate, it's time to sail. A day's journey upriver, nomadic reindeer herders are waiting for David Anderson. As the Dolgans have instructed him, he throws tobacco into the river, an offering to the shamans and the journey ahead. The captain is a good navigator, but the river's shallow north shore can only be reached with a smaller boat. Even then, people will still have to walk ashore or be carried. There's no such thing as a grocery store on the tundra, making gifts of flour or sugar most welcome. The good news is the reindeer herders are still here. The bad news is the fog is getting thicker. It's almost midnight, but with 24 hours of light this far north, it's hard to tell what time it is. A practical people, the Dolgan craft reindeer halters out of ancient mammoth ivory they found still poking above the frozen ground. Being practical keeps people alive on the tundra. Although there are almost no landmarks, and the way ahead is obscured by fog, the Dolgan always know where they're going. It's an ancient and complex form of navigation. Guided only by past experience on the land, they say they can feel their way home. For thousands of years, indigenous people and reindeer lived in this area where musk ox didn't survive until they were reintroduced. What are the secrets of survival? There's little evidence of dramatic climatic change 3,000 years ago. Did a deadly supervirus sweep through the ancient musk ox herds? Or did nomadic hunters like the Dolgan hunt them to extinction? For those interested in returning other Ice Age animals to the tundra, these are important mysteries that need to be solved. Sorting bones back in Hatanga, Dick Maul is greeted by Vladimir Eisner,
Dick, hello.
an experienced tundra guide and longtime member of Bernard's team.
Here are two bags.
Show me what you have.
Vladimir believes he has found bones that might prove that nomadic hunters killed off the musk ox.
Look, this bone. So specially broken.
I see what you mean, yeah?
Not by permafrost, but maybe for humans.
Why you think humans did this?
Because they are so strange broken. Look.
You think they took the marrow out?
Maybe.
This is musk ox.
And
The
this?
humorous. This is musk ox. This is beautiful. I mean, for a paleontologist to see something like this is your heart is beating faster and faster.
Excited, Dick wants to see where they come from.
So tell me where the side is. It's really beautiful.
It's around 100 kilometers from Katanga.
100.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Where is the site exactly?
Here, a small lake called Semilach. It means in local dialect, lake with bones.
Lake with bones.
Yes, in local dialect.
If you think this is a kill site, we have to check it. You know, look how this fits, Vladimir. This is so
Yes.
beautiful. A find of a partial skeleton of a musk ox is spectacular.
Now I'm interested in paleontologic founds too.
Very good.
I begin to love old bones.
Continue working as a hunter in this area and hunt for mammoths and musk ox.
Good, I'll
Yeah?
do.
Good.
Looking for bones in the permafrost is like searching an enormous haystack for needles. They're there, but finding them takes good planning. Dick and Bernard will search together, while Vladimir Eisner will go farther north, to the north shore of Lake Taimyr, an area known as the Siberian Badlands. The holy grail of paleontology is still to be claimed. Somewhere out there, the intact frozen bodies of a woolly mammoth and an Ice Age musk ox are lying in the permafrost, waiting to be found. Musk ox and mammoth bones hidden in the permafrost can solve the mystery of the Ice Age extinction if the right bones are found. On the tundra of the Taimyr Peninsula, the search is on.
To go everywhere.
Yeah.
Bernard and Dick are driving a Russian monster truck known as a Bronto, specially designed to drive over the soggy tundra without getting stuck. It's a unique vehicle. If necessary, the Bronto can float and drive across the lake. For now, it'll follow along the lake shore. This is where the best specimens might emerge from the melting permafrost. Further north in the Siberian Badlands, Vladimir Eisner looks for musk ox bones cracked open by early human hunters. But first, he stopped to collect wild mushrooms. Years of Arctic experience have taught him to depend on the land for survival and companionship. Up here, isolated and alone, he's seen men go crazy.
Men are sitting here for 3-4 months, sometimes for half a year, without seeing nobody, without a radio sometimes, only speaking with a dog. And sometimes people become mad and the roof is gone. No, people run out in the tundra and they die.
In the days of the Soviet Union, these abandoned ruins were one of the most northerly weather stations in the world. Vladimir used to work here as a meteorologist before becoming a guide and hunter. Now there is no one living here, no one to forecast the weather. The Soviet Empire has turned to rusted metal, just another set of bones laid to rest on the tundra. For Russians today, state support is long gone, and those who choose to remain in the north need to find new employment, like searching for the Ice Age. For Bernard and Dick, the new Siberia is the world's best location for researching the Earth 10,000 years ago.
You want to find more, Dick?
Each year, the permafrost erodes, unearthing Pleistocene bones scattered in the shoreline mud, waiting to be found.
It's good that there is not a lot of tourism in this area. So otherwise there will be nothing on the beach.
Along with ancient musk ox, bison, and wolf bones, there may be 1 million mammoth carcasses beneath the tundra's frozen surface.
No, but I'm sure that you come each morning.
Oh.
You can find something, yeah?
If you have this in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Let's take a look.
Back at the abandoned meteorological station, the recent past is yielding a treasure of another kind. Several tons of free gasoline left behind by the Soviets, a last gift to a changing world.
Before, clear that we found bones in tundra, but we throw them out. In the tusk, we collected to make handles for knives or to give it for our friends as souvenirs. They are interesting and beautiful things. And now we began to understand that these bones are from very old animals.
Uh-huh. Look how it is melting fast. You saw this?
No.
It's also musk ox, upper jaw, with 2 molars.
You find close
on
to
the beach,
the...
yeah? And this is from a carnivore. I guess this is from a polar fox.
Of an old one?
This is an old one, I'm sure. Because if you look at the beach, close to the side, to our campsite.
Yeah.
The only full-time human residents on Lake Taimir's north shore are a few hardy fishermen. In the Soviet era, there were only gulag camps here, from which no one returned alive. But Nikolai the fisherman chose this place to live years ago. Until today, he thought he'd seen everything it was possible to see here. He's found a mammoth carcass on the shoreline and brought a thigh bone back to his fishing hut.
Ever since I was young, I wanted to be a fisherman on the tundra. I love the job. It's a hard job, but you have to love your job. In the last 5 years, I've seen many more musk oxen than I've seen before. I'll even see them down on the beach by Lake Taimyr.
Enduring brutally tough conditions may have finally paid off for Nikolai. He knows he's made a valuable find. There's more than a thigh bone out there. Today, Nikolai is proud. His friend Vladimir has called on the radio and says he'll come to have a look. As rain starts to fall, Nikolai waits. In either heavy summer downpours or vicious winter blizzards, waiting was a key survival strategy of Ice Age musk ox. In their world, time was meaningless. Instead of migrating to better weather like reindeer, musk ox stayed where they were, huddling together and eating what they could find on the tundra floor. Astonishingly thick coats kept them warm and dry. The Dolgan people say that bad things happen to those who dig in the earth to find mammoths. With little luck of finding good bone specimens and their Russian monster truck stuck in the lakeside mud, Bernard and Dick must be asking each other if the Dolgan legends are true. Ice Age musk ox and mammoth sank into mud sinkholes like this one, where they died and were preserved in permafrost. Will their Bronto meet the same fate? Miles away, in a strange, heavy fog on Lake Taimyr's north shore, old friends Vladimir and Nikolai repair fishing nets. Nikolai tells Vladimir that he thinks he's made a great discovery, and the thigh bone is just a sample. The rest of his mammoth is stored at another fishing camp called Cape Sablera. For Vladimir, it's a great surprise. Looking for broken musk ox bones, has he stumbled by accident onto the holy grail of paleontology? On the vast Siberian tundra, the quest to find Ice Age musk ox and mammoth remains continues. And now a fisherman has made a great discovery. Eager to see it, Bernard Bouy and Dick Maul are frustrated. Their tundra car has met its match in the mud, and for now, they're not going anywhere until a helicopter is called in by radio to pull them out. In this extreme environment, life hangs by a thread. Helicopters, like the big Mi-8, are a lifeline to safety, flown by battle-hardened veterans of the Soviet war in Afghanistan. Finally, things are looking up for Bernard and Dick. Their car is flown right to Cape Sablera, where the bones are stored. After years of near misses, searching for the perfect specimen, Nikolai's find is exciting news. Is this the one? The source of intact mammoth DNA? At Cape Sablera, Nikolai is waiting to show them the mammoth's tusks and molars he's discovered.
Oh, this looks like a pear.
Looks like a pear. It's a real pear.
Oh.
And Bernard and Dick are impressed.
Oh la la.
Oh, in very nice condition.
Oh
Look.
la 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 la.
The quality is excellent. This is a wonderful. I have to push this a little bit more.
Interesting.
Excellent. When you look into the alveoli, in the pulpar cavity, you almost can see through it.
Yeah.
And we take the outer curve.
Measuring the tusks yields information about their age, sex, and their value. There's a lot of high-quality ivory here, and everyone in the Taimyr knows it's in high demand on either Russia's legal or black markets.
What do you estimate the weight? 40 kilos?
I would say 35. I become professional in picture with a tusk. Like
These mammoth tusks are worth over $10,000, but to Bernard and Dick, they could be priceless. For now, it's better to document the promising find and return later.
Not only tusk and this place,
this, and when they have other bones, they could
they
be
have
an entire complete skeleton.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Really well preserved.
Let's take it to Hatanga.
No?
I'm joking. It would be a wonderful addition for our collection in Hatanga.
Yeah.
We can name this mammoth in honor of Nikolai, the Nikolai mammoth.
Yeah, that's good.
Because it's indicating there's more.
Yeah.
So it needs to have a name.
Yeah.
So.
Nikolai Mammoth.
And Cape Sablera we have already so often in our collection.
Yeah.
So the Nikolai mammoth would be a good idea. And maybe he wants to donate them to us.
It will be much more better idea.
Yeah.
Bernard makes Nikolai an offer for the tusks.
This way, I think.
Nikolai asks for time to consider it. Perhaps there's a better offer somewhere out there. Today, musk ox look exactly as they did in the last great ice age, when woolly mammoths were alive. The high Russian Arctic is as close to the remnants of the Ice Age glaciers as life here can get. In this harsh world, musk ox are evolution's perfect design for the tundra's short summers and long, cold winters. Due to global warming, there may never be another ice age, but the presence of musk ox proves that some Ice Age animals can not only survive, but thrive on the Taimyr. 10,000 years ago, there were many more woolly creatures here, thriving in the shadow of fearsome glaciers. But when the ancient ice walls melted, most of those animals died. Thick coats and an uncanny ability to get by with meager food sources help musk ox survive. On the modern tundra, the woolly mammoth would likely starve. As far back as the Dolgan reindeer herders can remember, the tundra has been a world of lakes and frozen ground. Most of the year they eat a steady diet of reindeer, but in the late summer it's fish, the best raw freshwater lake salmon in the world. Year-round, these nomads live in movable huts made of animal skins. Today, the thick fog prevents them from moving camp, so David Anderson asks the camp's elder for stories about the musk ox of their past.
Musk oxen used to live here a long time ago. The old people used to say they once lived here and then they died out. The old people said that at one time there was very high water, and the water covered all of the land, and the land disappeared. And that's when the musk oxen died out and there weren't any more. And there was nothing left in the area, just tundra. To this day, you can still find the remains of wood and trees.
10,000 years ago, the melting ice sheets hit the north like a climate bomb. Incredibly, these reindeer herders remember such a time.
The Dolgan folklore that you find written in the literature has many examples of flooding. The shamans knew that there was a flood coming, would make a boat and save some animals on the boat, but some other animals like the mammoths and the musk ox didn't get onto the boat, and they died in the high waters and weren't able to survive.
The collapse of the Ice Age glaciers brought the end of one world and the beginning of another. For almost everyone on Earth, it's a forgotten time. But on the Taimyr, the story of these origins has passed on from generation to generation, as fresh today as it was 5 minutes after the fall of the ice wall. Is this where scientists can find their answers to questions about the Ice Age environment? Here, and nowhere else on Earth, the Ice Age is alive in living memory. On the remote tundra of the eastern Taimyr Peninsula, a strange fog has been thickening for days. The Dolgan reindeer herders say it's the worst fog anyone's seen in 30 years. The shamans are angry, they say. Someone must have dug into the earth and disturbed a mammoth. Canadian anthropologist David Anderson has found that the idea of returning a cloned mammoth to the tundra frightens the Dolgan. They're still getting used to the musk ox. Animals returning from the frozen land of the dead must prove they can survive on the tundra, and survival here isn't easy. Today, in spite of the fog, the Dolgan are lassoing their reindeer so the vet can inoculate the herd. It's a reindeer rodeo. For thousands of years, indigenous people on the Taimyr have survived together with reindeer. And after 30 years, the reintroduced musk ox are only now being accepted.
People have said that when they first saw musk oxen, they were shocked that they were so big and furry and that people saw them as being somewhat out of place. Now that the people have had a chance to watch their behavior, they say, well, it's good to see something thriving in our land. Yeah, I think it's a very healthy worldview to look at musk oxen as something that are alive and that sort of give sort of a living aspect to the land.
And just as they were during the Ice Age, musk ox have again become a part of the Siberian Arctic. In the ice cave in Hatanga, French molecular biologist Régis de Brun is carefully taking tissue samples from the hook mammoth.
It's really amazing to consider that today we can retrieve the DNA of an individual that was living maybe 20,000 years before present.
But so far, intact strands of mammoth DNA have yet to be found, and what has been found has degraded over time. No good for cloning. Not yet, anyway.
We think that we will find here in the frozen mammoths much more DNA than what we are used to with mammoths, because the mammoths we are used to working with are kept in museums for decades. And here the mammoths just get out from the permafrost, are kept in frozen conditions, which are really good conditions for preserving DNA for a long term.
Even so, cloning an extinct mammoth seems nearly impossible. The tissue must be frozen perfectly at the moment of death. There's a 1 in a million chance of ever finding such a specimen. But the Siberian permafrost is the world's best natural freezer, and Bernard and Dick are already planning next year's expedition to dig out the Nikolai mammoth. In the meantime, they keep on making important discoveries about the Ice Age environment.
Most people think that the mammoths and the mammoth fauna were adapted to a snow-covered tundra, but that's wrong. We know from the fossil record that the mammoth was adapted to a grassland environment together with the associated fauna, including the musk ox. That the musk ox are doing so well today on the tundra, which is even snow-covered in winter, and the winter is extremely long here. It's something which is unique.
What is very interesting working on mammoth and the megafaune at that time is that you can understand better how was the environment at that time and what was the life at that time. Not only the life of the mammoth, but also the life of a human. Yeah. And to understand the life of a human, like you need for the mammoth, you have to understand the environment.
In the decades since this secret Soviet world was open to the West, many answers about the Ice Age have been unearthed on the Siberian tundra. Bernard and his team are closing out their Arctic field season. There's much to celebrate. Nikolai the fisherman has agreed on a price and will sell them his mammoth tusks. Perhaps next year, the Nikolai mammoth will yield intact DNA and they can clone an ancient Ice Age mammal. Either way, this is the best place on Earth to solve the scientific mysteries that remain frozen in time. Siberia is a land where oral tradition still remembers the last Ice Age, and stories are still told of a time when musk ox roamed these vast grassland plains beside woolly mammoths. Musk ox survived the end of the Ice Age the same way they survived the collapse of the Soviet Union. They found the last good place to eat and barely noticed the disaster unfolding all around them. No one knows why they did disappear, but when they were returned to the Taimyr after a 3,000-year absence, it was like they never left. Canada and Russia are linked by the Arctic and now by one of nature's great evolutionary creations. The top of the world is once again the realm of musk ox, a world without borders, a world beyond time. For the rest of the creatures of the last Ice Age, they're probably gone forever. But if bets could be placed on evolution's winners and losers, the odds are good that the musk ox, nature's ultimate survivalist, will be around for a long time coming, weathering, as it always has, the unpredictable winds of change.
In a remote corner of Canada, an amazing secret is being revealed. An animal that modern science had no idea existed. A new culture of wolves. Once the Earth's greatest four-legged land predator roamed the entire northern hemisphere. But its relationship with humans is like oil and water, and for centuries it was the wolf who became the hunted. Everywhere, that is, except here.
This is a place where you're not likely to be killed by a human being, in great contrast to everywhere else where wolves still exist today.
They may not be living exactly as they were 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, but what has evolved has been a natural evolution.
Lost in time, in one of the last wild places on Earth, is it possible that here, and only here, wolves still live the way wolves once everywhere did? How unique are they? How have they survived? What are the secrets of the coast wolf? On the extreme edge of northwest British Columbia, the Pacific Ocean collides with the coast mountains to create a global hotspot of biodiversity. Hugging 500 kilometers of coastline are the most pristine rainforests left in North America, and an archipelago of over 1,000 islands. It is one of nature's final frontiers. But so far, no one really knows what here is. It has never been fully studied by science. For the past decade, Ian McAllister, a founder of the Rain Coast Conservation Society, has navigated thousands of kilometers of this coastline, fighting to save these ancient rainforests from industrial logging. His preferred weapon is science, and uses it to learn how this poorly understood ecosystem works, and when it doesn't.
When we first started work up here, it was really based on exploration. There was a fair amount of work being done on salmon, the yearly counts of salmon, but for virtually all of the terrestrial components to this coastline, there was very, very little information.
At over 60,000 square kilometers, this is an area larger than Ireland, so it's easy to understand why information was scarce. Rain Coast first decided to study grizzly bears, a key species and an entry point to understanding the entire ecosystem. But instead of answers, they discovered a new mystery.
We realized that there were some big gaps in our knowledge, in particular the outer coastal island areas. And the reason for that is that we would have grizzly bear biologists working in these valleys, and they wouldn't see any grizzly bears, they would be seeing wolves.
Okay, there's three really easy, almost...
What puzzled them most was how the wolves got there.
Where really this conflict exists with the forest companies.
Some islands were 15 kilometers from the mainland, and it was thought that wolves didn't like to swim. It was a mystery begging for an answer. And so in 2000, McAllister, along with Dr. Paul Paquette, one of the world's leading wolf experts, and Chris Deramont, a biologist at the University of Victoria, spearheaded the Rainforest Wolf Project.
We think that historically the coastal wolf was probably found from northern California to southeastern Alaska. What makes this place so special is that those wolves are still here. And they're here in pretty much intact habitat that we can't find anywhere else.
Wind's in our favor, and the rain really keeps the smell close to the ground and doesn't move around too much, so it's maybe a good time to see some wolves.
It would become the most comprehensive study of its kind. Hundreds of days were spent in the field, but what really excited these scientists was how the coast wolf had adapted to the sea.
I've never seen wolves elsewhere swim the way that the wolves here do, and do it regularly and seemingly without concern. And it's because water is so predominant in their environment, it's everywhere, and they've adapted to it.
Wolves everywhere in the world like to move. In North America, they've been known to travel up to 100,000 square kilometers to find food or a mate. Here, they just learned how to swim for it. But the coast wolf's amazing adaptation to water didn't begin or end on a beach.
Before the work we did, nobody had systematically cataloged what the wolves were doing and how effective they were at fishing and so on. And that's a new contribution. And what we found is that they're very, very good preying on spawning salmon.
The scientists also learned that fishing season was the perfect time to observe wolves in the open. The annual salmon spawn is a time of détente between animals. Everything is focused on fattening up for winter, and the feast is endless. But coast wolves, it seems, are picky eaters.
If this fish is swimming up the creek, wolves will just trot in and grab right here with their teeth and just yank, you know, up to a 10, 15, 20 pound salmon out of the creek, and it's still writhing back and forth, and they'll flop it down, they'll put their paws on it, and they'll just open it right up and take off the head.
The scientists believed that they ate only the heads to avoid harmful parasites in the body. It was more evidence of a long-term relationship between wolves and the sea. But how long had it been here? To find out, they had to travel back in time.
We actually follow in the footsteps of wolves, pick up what they leave behind, these scats, and extract and amplify the DNA to ask questions about their evolutionary history and about which wolf was here, where, and when.
DNA, the double helix of the genetic code, the fundamental building block of life. What could it reveal about the secret life of the coast wolf? On the remote northwest coast of British Columbia, researchers had spent years unlocking the secrets of a new culture of wolves. Part of their success was due to some unique non-invasive study techniques. In the past, science had often relied on traps or tranquilizers to study animals up close. But Paul Paquette and Chris Darrimont believed that seeing wasn't everything. To learn even more, they collected scat-based DNA. In the human world, genetic fingerprinting has proven everything from guilt or innocence to the birth parents of a lost child. In the wolf world, thousands of scat samples were collected to help determine population sizes, how often wolves travel between islands, even its evolutionary history.
Many people wonder, well, how on earth is there DNA in scat? And what happens when the food that the wolf has eaten makes its way through the digestive tract? It picks up cells from the intestinal lining, and out those cells come with the scat. So in the scat here, there are literally thousands of skin cells from the wolf, and of course in every cell is the DNA. This is the first stage of a complicated process.
The second stage is 1,000 miles in a world far removed from the British Columbia coast. Here, Jennifer Leonard, a geneticist at the University of California in Los Angeles, uses more cutting-edge science to decipher secrets hidden in the coast wolf's DNA.
Once we get the feces in the lab, we first extract DNA from the feces, and then we take that and we can sequence it and read each base pair individually. And once we get all those sequences, we can compare them with the other wolves from all over the world.
It was the ultimate secret. Researchers knew the coast wolf was unique, but to find out how unique it really was, Leonard analyzed sequences in its genetic code called haplotypes.
A haplotype is just a version of genetic material, usually DNA. In this case, what we're studying is the mitochondrial DNA, which is a kind of DNA that's only passed from the mother to all of her children.
Inside the womb, as cells replicate during reproduction, genetic code in the mother's mitochondrial DNA is transferred. As this cycle repeats itself over thousands of years, mutations occur and are inherited as a new haplotype. More haplotypes in the DNA of an animal population means the more genetically diverse it is, something that can only occur undisturbed in the wild over a long period of time. But wolves have been hunted for centuries, and although genetic fingerprinting has identified 35 different haplotypes, as populations decreased, so did the number of mothers. So far, the largest number of haplotypes found in a single population is 5, and that made Leonard's results incredible, almost impossible.
All of Canada and Alaska that's been surveyed only have 5 haplotypes. So finding 14 haplotypes in just the coastal wolves of BC was very surprising. We expected 1 and maybe 2 haplotypes, and having 14 was vastly beyond what we imagined.
All these are North American wolves.
The results didn't prove the coast wolf had changed. Incredibly, they proved that it hadn't. But it had changed in the rest of North America, where hunting and habitat loss had decimated populations.
It is becoming more clear that the state of very high genetic diversity that we find in British Columbia is most likely the ancestral state, and that it isn't that the British Columbian wolves are strangely high in genetic diversity, but that the other populations are strangely low.
It was stunning clinical proof of what had been observed in the field, an ancient wolf living in the 21st century. But why here? As wild as it is, humans have lived here too for thousands of years. Except that here, a unique relationship exists between wolves and humans. They share the same territory, and wolves are not hunted for any reason.
We're all related to wolves. If I come into the company of a wolf, I'm not to harm it. I'm to speak to it, even if from my heart. And I'm to explain to it why I'm in its company. And I ask it for protection. We regard them as our brothers and our sisters.
Our working hypothesis at this time is that these wolves have maintained genetic diversity because they've not been persecuted to the extent of wolves in other wolves in North America and throughout the world.
It was something that couldn't be said about wolves anywhere else.
This is a different wolf. They've sort of gone on their own evolutionary route here on the coast. And there's probably hundreds or thousands of other taxa or organisms that are also different on the coast. So in that way, the wolves become an entry point to understanding a bigger system.
But after an exhaustive study of the coast wolf, scientists are now in a race against time to protect this entire ecosystem. 50% of the British Columbia coast has already been logged. Soon, it could happen here too.
When you consider that this is the genetic evolution, or the product of genetic evolution spanning 70, 80 million years, and yet we can take down so much forest in such a short period of time, that definitely feels wrong.
Nowhere else in the world does an intact wolf culture exist. But as rare as it is, just like its home range, the last temperate rainforests on Earth, is this where it will make its final stand? It was time to leave science behind and explore on our own the secret world of nature's greatest land predator. Raw, remote, and so far almost untouched by humans, British Columbia's northwest coast may be the most pristine ecosystem on Earth. There are no roads, and the forest canopy is too thick, so our search for the coast wolf will be done exclusively by boat. The scientists who studied wolves here spent almost 5 years and traveled thousands of kilometers. Our crew has only a few weeks to find and film these rare, elusive animals. It's a tough challenge. Wolves are notoriously difficult to film. They travel vast distances, rarely stay in one place long, and are extremely nervous of any human contact. The home range of the coast wolf may be unique, but there are no guarantees they will be in the same locations they were studied last year. Traveling deep into this 1,000-island archipelago is a journey back in time. On the surface, it's easy to understand how these wolves have withstood the impacts of progress. Here it seems everything has. Rugged, primitive, and extremely difficult to access, it's too isolated for hunting and still too expensive to log. It's a wild, ancient world where time, it seems, has literally stood still. Once old-growth northern boreal rainforests, the rarest forest type on Earth, carpeted the entire west coast from California to Alaska. Today, the last virgin stands of Sitka spruce and western red cedar exist only here. Some are over 1,000 years old. As far as we know, wolves have lived here too for about 10,000 years. However, new science has suggested that the last great ice age may have missed the far western edge of North America. So it's possible that they've lived here even longer. We've traveled north for over a week, and every promising site has been a disappointment. Evidence of wolves is everywhere, but there are no fresh tracks or kills. Now the first big storm of the fall is brewing in the Pacific, and our crew is getting frustrated. But at least now it's also obvious why this coastal ecosystem is one massive rainforest. They land on an island about 1 kilometer from the mainland, and our cameraman, a veteran wildlife cinematographer, decides to try a howl. And suddenly, there they are, an alpha male and 2 curious teenagers. Their fur is the ochre color unique to the coast wolf. Healthy but nervous, they retreat quickly into the forest as soon as they catch our scent. It's unlikely they'll be back. After 100 tough, wet kilometers, a 30-second glimpse is no success at all. And so the crew continues north to an island they've heard of near Canada's border with Alaska. This island is almost 20 kilometers from the mainland, an almost impossible distance. But as science has already confirmed, this wolf likes to swim and fish for its dinner. It's also possible that they rode the tides to travel this far out, and now it may be too far to swim back. Finally, our crew finds the evidence they've been looking for. Fresh salmon carcass. There are wolves here, and they've been fishing on this estuary today. By nightfall, an observation blind has been set up, and the crew settles in. Suddenly, the wait is over. In the black of night, our cameraman is caught off guard. He's alone in the blind, and it seems that the resident wolves have decided to let this intruder know whose territory this is.
Okay, I've got these wolves surrounding me here. There's 5 wolves, and they're not afraid of me.
He may have a night vision camera, but he's still at a distinct disadvantage.
I've got the night vision on, I've bear sprayed one of them, and they're still circling. I'm probably the only other large mammal here, other than the wolves.
It may be the first time wolves anywhere have been filmed at night, behavior never observed before, and these wolves are behaving boldly. It's an unexpected, unnerving success, and for the rest of this night, there will be no sleep. For all animals that live on this small island outpost, this estuary is the source of all life. It looks as if a family of 4 wolves lives here, an adult or alpha male, 2 females, and a lone pup. They know our camera is located just across the estuary, but clearly they don't seem to care. If they did, they'd be invisible. But this pack looks relaxed. They're the ones in charge here. In the fall, life on this island is as good as it gets. A time when wolves can eat, sleep, and play all day. Wolves are extremely social, and family is everything. Playtime reinforces the bond and relieves any tensions in the pack. Since time began here, life on the estuary has depended on 2 constant primordial rhythms, the rise and fall of the sun and the tides. On average, these are 23-foot tides, rising and falling every 6 hours. At over 4 feet an hour, water rushes in and out constantly. Only at the peak of high tide does the ocean seem to take a break. It's a rare moment of calm and a good time for harp seals to navigate upstream to fish. While ducks, geese, and many other shorebirds patiently wait for the inevitable. And then the ocean rushes out again. This intertidal zone between land and sea is a rich feeding ground. It's good hunting for the birds, although shellfish stranded by the tide always make for a challenging meal. For about 8 months of the year, the wolves here are also quite capable of scrounging a meal from these shallow tidal pools. But in the fall, they too feast in this stream. Every study of the coast wolf has revealed the same thing. Although the bulk of their diet is similar to their continental cousins, like all animals here, they eat a lot of salmon. Coast wolves will hunt deer, even bear. But on this island, where they seem to be the only large land mammals, without this annual surge of salmon, they couldn't survive. And right now, this stream is packed with them, eager to spawn. After a 4-year journey across thousands of kilometers of Pacific Ocean, these mature salmon are exhausted, and the wolves pick them off with ease. In the native legends of the Northwest, it is the raven who brought light to the world, breathed life into man, and convinced the salmon to come to this coast. Now the raven watches the wolf closely, who, in tribute, always leaves it a meal. Thousands of years of evolution has taught the great blue heron to stand perfectly still and wait for a fish to come to it. And so does this adult female. These salmon weigh about 15 pounds, but the wolves make quick work of them, puncturing the skull and killing them instantly. As science has confirmed, they eat only the heads. Some think it's because they can't digest parasites in the body cavity, but the head does contain the highest fat content. As fearless as they are, the adults have remained protective of their pup and kept it far away from our camera. But it's not just these new, unknown intruders that worry them. The alpha male has spied a lone wolf entering the estuary. It's probably just looking for a free lunch. But the alpha is in no mood to share his fish. They may have fought before, or perhaps the lone wolf is naturally cautious. Either way, he won't confront the alpha today. An alpha will defend his pack or territory against any intruder. It's another behavior that's rarely been filmed, and incredibly, this alpha knows we're watching. Once again, after dark, the wolves grow even more confident. Darkness is their true domain, and if our crew is smart, they'll retreat to their tent and wait for morning. But before they can react, the pack is back.
I've got the pack of wolves here again. And they're creeping around here somewhere. I can hear them. Whoa. It's all right. You're okay. Let's be friends. You settle down. Twigs snapping. Of course, around my tent. Get out of here.
More than any other animal, the wolf is a creature of myth and mystery. From the Grimm brothers to Walt Disney, the big bad wolf has had a unique grip in our imagination. But in the native legends of coastal British Columbia, wolves are neither wicked nor violent. One legend tells the tale of a hunter who lived on these islands. Every night he left his wife, only to return at dawn with fresh game. His wife wondered why he was such a great hunter, and soon learned he could transform himself into a wolf, the supreme hunter of the night. At night, wolves are indeed transformed. In a world dependent on scent and sound, their amazing eyesight makes nighttime their time. It's now pitch black. Wolves have never been filmed feeding at night, and they go about their business as if it were broad daylight, hunting, fishing, and eating. Wolfman's wife bore him 4 children, all wolves. But one night she heard laughter in her home. The pups had removed their fur cloaks and become human. The woman felt deceived that her children too could be transformed, and in her anger she threw 3 furs into the fire. The 4th pup escaped and became the coast wolf. But the others, with no fur for warmth or strong jaws and swift feet, remained merely human. At night, in the company of wolves, it's easy to feel merely human.
Where? Can you see with that camera? Hey, Wolf. Hey, Wolf. Just chill. Just get the bear spray ready.
No other animal would investigate humans like this, actively, curiously, and in total control.
Oh my God.
Here, perhaps only here, the historic relationship between wolves and humans has been reversed. Because here, it's the humans' turn to be wary of the wolves.
Just chill. Is she growling? No. That was a growl, dude. Okay, yeah. Watch my back. See her? Yeah. Watch that. How's the mother? Where? Right here. Got her.
For a lot of reasons, sunrise is now our camera crew's favorite time of day. It's also low tide, and with the salmon exposed and vulnerable, eagles and shorebirds have arrived right on time. And so have the wolves. But today is different. For the first time, the whole pack has come to fish, as a family. This female is the pack teenager. She's at least 2 years old, but still an awkward hunter. Young coast wolves have a much lower mortality rate than wolves on the continent, but they still need to eat about 3 times as much protein as adults. The rich seafood diet here explains a lot about their high survival rate. But fishing skills are not instinctive. The alpha male shows his daughter how it's done. Wolves are the most intelligent of all land predators, but they still need to learn how to be wolves. And this teenager is learning well. Physically, an adult wolf is the size of a large dog, but a lot leaner. These are endurance animals built for the long-distance kill. Packs hunt by running their prey down, pursuing it until it's too exhausted to resist. But for a coast wolf, at least during the salmon run, there's no need for a long hunt. Here, the fishing is very good. The pup of the pack is about a year old, and he has a lot to learn. Right now, he doesn't even want to get his feet wet. His mother waits and watches patiently. Like all mothers, she knows he can do it. And she's right. He quickly dashes across and gets a warm nip of approval as a reward. The mother, too, is a proficient deadly hunter. Now it's the pup's turn to watch closely and then practice his own technique. Adults can go days without eating, But when they can, they will eat up to 1/5 their body weight, or about 18 pounds at one time. To survive the lean winter months ahead, gorging now could make the difference between life or death. But in good times or bad, a pack will rarely fight over food. And adults will never snatch food from a pup. If this one doesn't catch on soon and start fishing on his own, he too might not survive. Odds are he will, just like his sister has. Wolves are nature's prime social carnivores. Its behavior totally unique to wolves. For all others on this island, it's everyone for himself. No one knows how long this pack has been here, but as long as it has, it's depended on the sea for survival. It's the living proof our crew was looking for, of a unique ancient culture of wolves alive and well on Canada's remote northwest coast. After weeks filming wolves on a tiny island in the remote northwest corner of British Columbia, our camera crew is starting to believe that it's the wolves who are watching them. The best example so far of their uncanny confidence is to allow their pup to play exposed and in broad daylight. It's clear these wolves have no reflexive fear of humans, but we're not so sure that our humans still don't have a reflexive fear of wolves. Fall is advancing rapidly towards winter, while the salmon run is slowing down. Spawned out and exhausted, they make an easy meal. Another scientific breakthrough here is a new understanding of the contribution salmon make to the health of the rainforest itself. As their carcasses rot, nutrients, especially nitrogen, are deposited in the soil. This annual exchange between land and sea is a good reason why these rainforests are so fertile. The pup too has progressed quickly, and this fish is the first he's caught all on his own. If he's going to fatten up to survive the winter ahead, he needs to hurry up and catch even more. Soon enough, the spawn will end, and all the wolves here are now eating as much as they can. A wolf's natural life is about 10 years, but many die prematurely from disease or infection. They can bleed to death from a cut on the tongue. A sharp fish bone or a porcupine quill can infect and kill them. As a result, it's quite possible that by spring, it will be the young wolves who survived. For now, all their parents can do is teach them everything they can, as fast as they can. Wolves use 3 known methods of communication: howling, posturing, like baring their teeth, and scent marking. Scent marking is poorly understood by science. We think it's used to warn both the pack and intruders where a home territory begins and ends. But if this message, delivered personally, is too subtle for our crew, the Alpha has another way of letting us know whose island this is. The crew has set up this microphone to record the natural sound of the estuary.
Hey! That's enough. That's enough! Don't make me come out there.
The jaws of a wolf can exert a crushing pressure of 1,500 pounds per square inch, more than twice that of a large dog.
Hey! Go eat the fish.
The manual doesn't say how much pressure the microphone can resist, but we're pretty sure it's less than 1,500 pounds.
Hey, hey now. Don't eat the mic.
The Alpha makes short work of it. It's a $5,000 meal. The crew sets the microphone up a second time, and again the Alpha approaches. But this time, he's figured it out. To claim his prize, he needs to cut the microphone cable.
Okay, I gotta walk eat the mic here. It's not listening at all.
It's another amazing display of behavior and intelligence. It's also the clearest message yet that wolves are the dominant species here. But after sunset, the pack has another surprise.
Don't be surprised if they come around tonight.
Almost every night, our crew has had an unnerving visit from the pack that's made sleep a luxury. The weather hasn't helped either. Their main night vision camera has been damaged by rain and salt water. Now a single backup camera is all they have left.
What's that noise?
But tonight, the pack isn't interested in the crew. They're interested in the crew's inflatable Zodiac.
Where? Holy shit. He's going to town on the Zodiac. Grab the handheld. Watch that. Can't get her. That's that hose from the boat. Yeah. This guy likes to chew on shit. He's just sending messages. Where's the other one? Whoa. How you doing, big guy? Hey there. You're a pretty wolf. Stand by. Stand by. Just hang on. Okay, I think the show's over.
Now it's the crew's turn to be curious. Why would the wolves attack their boat? Chewed up microphones, a damaged Zodiac. We may have just worn out our welcome. And the next morning, it is over. Time to let these wolves get on with simply being wolves. Their future, however, remains a big question mark. But if humans don't empty these waters of salmon or destroy these rainforests with commercial logging, or a natural disaster or disease doesn't upset their island paradise, then they just might survive. The coast wolf is the rarest wolf on Earth, because isolation has allowed it to live just as it has for thousands of years. But ironically, its best chance to survive thousands more will be with the help of something uniquely human. A bit of luck. On a planet whose surface is 3/4 water, the mysteries of the deep have long provided potent inspiration for the active imagination. When ancient mariners drew maps of a world they had only begun to understand, they wrote over vast, unexplored oceans, "Here there be monsters." Today it seems that our entire world has been well documented by explorers or scientists, and that all our monsters have been found out. But swimming silently in the icy depths of the Arctic, there is one creature that has remained a mystery. Until now. To qualify as a monster to loom in our imagination, the shark has been more than happy to oblige. Its stealthy and toothsome biological design has made it the most feared predator of the deep. Almost all of the 465 shark species live in tropical waters, feasting on a 4-star buffet that is easy to spot coming, including the odd scientist. Only 8 are known to frequent more forbidding waters. And these have proven more difficult to study than their southern cousins. But only one still remains more legend than fact. It has never been studied in the wild, and left scientists scratching their heads for over a century. A true monster.
John Steinbeck wrote that an ocean without unnamed monsters would be like a completely dreamless sleep. And somewhere in the human psyche, I think we need monsters, undescribed things. They are not necessarily scary, but they're undescribed and mysterious. That's really what a monster is. And I think in my psyche, that was what the Greenland shark was.
The Greenland shark. It is the largest Arctic fish and one of the world's largest sharks. At over 20 feet in length and weighing in at more than a ton, it rivals the stature of the fearsome great white. But unlike all shark species, the Greenland shark remains a great unknown, fueling the imaginations of scientists worldwide. Many have traveled north to study the secret life of this mysterious shark. But so far, only dead specimens washed up on a beach or snared in a net have been found. And no one has ever filmed a Greenland shark swimming freely in the wild. Ever. For Dr. Chris Harvey Clark, a marine biologist at Dalhousie University in Halifax, Nova Scotia, sharks have loomed large in his imagination since childhood.
I think it would probably have to be Christmas morning about 1970, unwrapping a parcel that had a book about sharks in it and reading about that. But that focused an interest that had come from my father, who swam with sharks all his childhood.
Dr. Clark's early fascination with sharks would ultimately become a lifelong passion. But there was one shark in particular that swam the strongest in his dreams.
The first time I ever saw a Greenland shark, I guess I was about 12 years old, living in Ottawa. It was in the Ottawa Citizen newspaper. It was a picture of a fellow with a toque and a parka on, who sitting beside an ice fishing hole with 2 sharks laid out on the ice beside him.
This fisherman's tale didn't make the front page because of a slow news day, but its unlikely location. These sharks had been caught far from their Arctic home, hauled through the ice on a frozen river in Quebec, called the Saguenay. The Saguenay is a tributary of the Great St. Lawrence River, the most important shipping channel in North America. With breathtaking cliffs and a unique marine ecosystem, it is one of the few inland fjords in the world. Greenland sharks were thought to frequent only the Arctic waters near their namesake island. Yet the Saguenay is almost 3,000 kilometers and a sharp left turn from home. For over 20 years, this unusual shark story continued to intrigue Chris Harvey Clark. What were they doing so far from home? His attempts at finding an answer remained as elusive as the shark itself.
Looking for Greenland sharks in Canada has been like looking for Bigfoot. It's a bit like cryptozoology in that we started with nothing. There was really no literature on these animals.
In fact, all that did seem to exist in this remote, isolated region on the north shore of the St. Lawrence were local stories of shark encounters, and these had never been translated for the benefit of the English-speaking world. But in 1996, Chris got lucky. He met another shark expert who knew the area well, yet he too had never heard the stories about the Greenland shark.
I guess it all started when I met Chris at a dive conference in Nova Scotia. Chris mentioned this story about when he was a kid, having read an article about sharks having been fished in the Saguenay Fjord through the ice. And when we started talking about this, he says, "Why don't you investigate this story?"
Jeff Galland is a professor and professional diver from Drummondville, Quebec. His passion for sharks has taken him around the world, including a Cousteau research expedition.
One of the most interesting things in regards to the Greenland shark is that so little is known about it. The other thing is, relatively speaking, it's in my backyard. And to have such a big animal still be such a mystery in 2003 is just something I had to work on.
Now Jeff too was hooked on the mystery of the Saguenay sharks. And because he spoke French, he became the perfect sleuth to conduct some old-fashioned detective work.
Et pour ce qui est des poissons comme le requin du Groenland, lui, j'en ai entendu parler, je l'ai vu dans les journaux. Je sais que dans le milieu des années 90, vers 96, on a attrapé un requin qui mesurait à peu près 4 mètres à la baie, dans la baie des AA.
A voyage up the majestic Saguenay Fjord is a journey into the heart of French Canada.
They're doing things that we didn't think they do. They can move fast.
For 500 years, the Saguenay has been home to a unique culture of farmers and fishers, and for those willing to ask, its very own monster. The St. Lawrence River, first explored by Jacques Cartier in 1535, appears more like a vast inland sea. Ships lost in its unpredictable swells, maidens abandoned on remote islands, and epic battles fought on its shores. The Fleuve Saint Laurent is home to a host of legends, some still alive and well just below its surface. In summer, 19 marine mammals, including minke, beluga, and humpback whales, also call these waters home. And where the Saguenay River meets the St. Lawrence is one of the best whale watching destinations in the world.
What do you think, Captain? Is that a small fin or is that a minke?
But while these gentle giants thrill thousands of tourists, they offer only a glimpse of the unique underwater universe they inhabit, a world they share with another, more mysterious giant.
The Greenland shark's environment is just a fascinating environment. It's alive. There is life just hanging on to everything.
Here, two unique marine worlds collide, creating an amazing explosion of life and color. From the Atlantic, the tides deliver cold salt water, carrying nutrient-rich plankton and swarms of krill. These support a dynamic food chain, ranging from anemones and sea peaches, wolffish and capelin, to some of the world's biggest ocean dwellers. The Saguenay Fjord itself was formed during the last Great Ice Age, when retreating glaciers left behind a deep scar carved into the Laurentian Mountains. Its cliffs soar 400 meters high and mirror a riverbed of almost the same depth. In the fjord, salt water flowing in from the St. Lawrence meets freshwater runoff from the interior. Different temperatures and salinity means the waters don't mix. The colder, denser salt water slips under the warmer freshwater, and in the process, creates a submerged high-rise of biodiversity. The Greenland shark might be attracted here for the same reason as the whales: food, and lots of it.
These are animals that eat up and down the food chain. They'll eat marine mammal blubber, top of the food chain. They'll eat sedentary invertebrates on the bottom, and everything in between.
Chris was sure that Greenland sharks lurked in the fjord, but he was short on scientific evidence. That all changed when he and his partner, Jeff Gallant, began their grassroots investigation.
I started driving around the Saguenay, speaking to fishers, people at the Fjord Museum, anyone that I would see at the dock just fishing with a normal fishing line. I'd come up and go see him and say, "What do you know about sharks?" And people came up with all these amazing stories and photos, and that's how the investigative part all started out about 5 years ago. Vous êtes monsieur?
Steven Guerin.
Steven, bonjour. Jeffrey Gallant.
Chris Harvey Clark. Bonjour.
It was the beginning of a unique journey. A mysterious Arctic fish had become a local legend. But until Chris and Jeff came along, no one had ever asked why or where.
Vous étiez capitaine?
Moi, j'avais un chalutier 60 pieds. On pêchait la crevette. J'ai attrapé un requin de genre-là.
Soon enough, they discovered that as long as there had been a Quebec, there had been stories about sharks. The first was about a 16th century sailor whose leg was bitten off in a shark attack while swimming in the St. Lawrence. Pulled from the water, he bled to death on the deck of his ship.
I think the people of the Saguenay love their shark. It has almost become a mythical creature, a mascot of sorts for the people. The Greenland shark may be our own Loch Ness monster here in the Saguenay.
Here it seemed that the Greenland shark was nothing short of a celebrity. But for Jeff and Chris,
I want to see this.
it was the modern stories that really captured their attention.
Okay, you've got me hooked like the shark. I want to see this head now.
It's a part of it because the guys there, they didn't took complete.
Padu de la Durante's catch ended up on his kitchen wall.
Now this is the actual, this isn't a cast. It feels to me like they used the actual skin from the head. This is the real thing.
That's the one.
Yeah.
He's right there. And those teeth, that's the teeth of it.
And they're still pretty darn sharp.
Yeah.
So the holding teeth on the top, the cutting teeth on the bottom.
And the cutting teeth on the top like that. When he bite, he cut and there he goes.
I've seen pictures of whales that have been bitten by these, and it's like an ice cream scoop, and a big shark will take a 10 or 12 pound, perfect, like a bowl.
He just bite and cut.
Evidence of sharks in the Saguenay was everywhere. It just didn't exist in scientific journals.
Almost symmetrical.
But around dinner tables or over a Bière fort at the local bar, it was becoming obvious that the Greenland shark was a respected member of the local community.
It's the king because it's not easy to catch, and it deserves a place of honor. I think it's chosen the most beautiful place in Canada, maybe even the world.
Okay. Puis vous en avez pris en même temps?
We caught the shark at night. We checked on our lines when we got there. It was heavy, so we figured we had some cod. It was caught on 3 of our lines, so we pulled and pulled, and there it was, all twisted up.
Yeah, that's the giant one. Yeah, I remember this one. This is impressive.
Now it was up to Chris and Jeff to turn legends and lore into scientific fact. And if they were ever going to study this shark in the flesh, they would have to dive into its world. It was time to mount an expedition. So far, the evidence they had gathered indicated a certain time of year that Greenland sharks like to spend in the Saguenay, the dead of winter.
Okay.
Lui, c'est Ville de la Baie.
When the cold winds blow into Quebec's Saguenay Fjord, a new world is born. It's a bleak, frozen landscape. But winter is prime-time fishing season here, and so it seems, for catching sharks. In the past 40 years, dozens had been reeled in by unsuspecting fishers. Aurélien Gagné got his big surprise in 1995 and captured the entire event on his video camera.
Listen, when the shark came up the hole and I saw the tip of its nose, I sure jumped. I wasn't scared, but I always have a grapnel beside me. I grabbed it with the grapnel to take it out. We widened the hole. My friends had to come over and help me.
For shark researchers Jeff Gallant and Chris Harvey-Clark, it was more convincing proof.
So far from being extremely rare, they are around. The second thing was to go and actually look for a likely location, and that location was at the head of the Saguenay Fjord at La Baie, huge ice fishing camp there, probably 1,000 huts. And in 1996, anyway, we knew that I believe 5 sharks had been caught there, and over the years, almost every year a shark or 2.
And it was here that Jeff and Chris decided to mount their expedition. They called it Operation Skalugskoak, the Inuit name for the Greenland shark. Surrounded by fishing huts, the team sought a hole in the ice 2 feet thick and hoped for some good old-fashioned luck.
These areas here on the map are where they caught the Greenland shark. So they would have caught 2 at this fishing camp. Likely one in the first.
But the fjord's physical landscape, a haven for the deep-water Greenland shark, was a big problem. Diving in these cold, murky waters would be like looking for a needle in a haystack.
If you had a 4-meter predator crossing your lawn in urban Toronto, you'd sure know about it, so would everybody else, but things under the water are invisible, so people don't know they're there.
To find this shark, known as the giant swimming nose, the team had planned for any possible encounter.
We've got literally 100-pound blocks of meat on the bottom in wire cages. We've made these big wire burritos.
And then tonight, when we put more in, we'll actually have the blood balls. We'll add the blood balls to it. We've got 2 doors on each side. The doors are large enough for a diver to be able to swim through with his tank on. If a shark does show up, the shark is very bashful at first. So we thought that we could probably manage to get close to the shark without using the cage at first.
The team's arrival on the ice had drawn a lot of attention from both the media and the local community. Most thought that Chris and Jeff were crazy to dive in these extreme conditions.
People thought we were nuts to dive under the ice in the wintertime. But the reason we were there is because this shark is only known to come up near the surface in the wintertime when the surface water is colder than the bottom water. And since this shark is a shark that will normally be found at 1,000 feet and deeper, there's no way we can reach that depth on scuba gear.
So the diving conditions were extreme. The environmental conditions were extreme. The weather was terrible. I mean, it was sunny, but it was extremely cold, minus 30, minus 40. Equipment would freeze, plastic would just shatter. Regulators, your diving regulators would freeze open underwater and you lose your air supply in a couple of minutes. It was difficult diving, difficult situation.
You had all these factors. You had the ice, you had current under the ice, total darkness, only one way out. But we did this according to scientific diving safety standards. The team was very experienced.
Experience and safe diving protocols would protect the divers from the elements. But what if they did meet their monster? In this environment, no one knew what to expect.
Our lights would light up all of the big boulders on the bottom, and then the shadows of these rocks would move around as we're looking in different directions, and each rock looked like it could have been a Greenland shark.
Okay, so remember, just tell me when you guys are going down. So
I don't want to go down. I don't want this to end.
For days, the team explored this harsh, dark world. But instead of answers, only new questions surface with the divers.
It's got to be in the tent.
The sort of questions that a kid might ask you about the biology of these animals. Where does it go? What does it eat? How does it reproduce? How big does it get? How old is it? Can't answer them. I mean, these animals are really virtually undescribed and unknown in science. And I think that's a real challenge.
Operation Skalugskawak revealed a lot about the Saguenay ecosystem. But why the Greenland shark had never been studied in the wild before was becoming obvious. Diving here in the winter was just as tough as diving in the Arctic. And as the untouched bait stations proved, results were impossible to guarantee.
At the end of the Skalugskawak expedition, we felt whacked, basically. We were physically beaten up. We were, we had bruises and cuts and frozen fingers. Our equipment was beat up. Our psyches were a bit beat up because we were very pumped. We really thought we were going to see a Greenland shark, and we didn't.
Themselves. Yep. They go in and rip a piece of flesh off and bugger off.
Jeffrey, what's next? I'm talking big picture here, Jeff.
Oh, big picture. Okay. I'm still in the expedition.
Would you come back next year?
Yes, I would, but only if we didn't have to take care of all the logistics again, like the generator, the tent, and all that stuff. That took a lot of our time.
Jeff and Chris remained convinced that they could find the Greenland shark. And the next winter, they were back. Even though Skalugskawak too had to face the same tough challenges. The team was now attracting national attention, and even more stories of local shark encounters. But under the ice, it was still nowhere to be found. Now Chris and Jeff faced a classic scientific enigma. How do you find an animal whose very nature makes it almost impossible to study in the wild?
Now, when you're up to 2 strikes, and you know that maybe you'll have another chance at this, and if it doesn't work, then you're through. I had to come up with something with much better chances of actually seeing the animal. Like 1 chance out of 10 is just not going to cut it for another expedition.
Frozen, frustrated, and out of money, it was back to the drawing board. Would they get another chance? Only time would tell. For now, Jeff and Chris were going home. For over 5 years, Jeff Guillaume and Chris Harvey Clark had been hunting for Greenland sharks in the Saguenay Fjord of Quebec with no success.
If you you talk to my family and friends, they'll tell you that this Greenland shark thing I have is an obsession. My social life is taking a beating from this. To dive with this animal is something that very, very few people have done in the world. Very few people are studying the animal, and I'm just not going to give up.
2 tough winter expeditions had ended in failure. But both Jeff and Chris still believed that somewhere out there, their monster still lurked in the depths of the Saguenay.
We just got all kinds of anecdotal information that we would never have otherwise had that further confirm the conviction. These sharks are here. We just have to persist and we'll find them.
The 2 explorers had local assistance, experience, and scientific logic on their side. Everything, it seemed, except luck. But then, the unexpected happened.
Just out of nowhere, a few months later, I get this email from someone in Baie-Comeau that says that he'd observed a large fish. So immediately I phoned Chris.
And Jeffrey says, listen, Chris, I've been monitoring an electronic bulletin board. I've gotten some information. Some divers in Baie-Comeau are seeing some very big fish. They think they're seeing sharks.
Chris says, why aren't you already on the road to Baie-Comeau?
Well, one of the things that you have to be prepared to do when a serendipitous event comes along is you have to act and act fast.
Which is exactly what Jeff did. And within hours, he was speeding north. The town of Baie-Comeau is located on the north shore of the St. Lawrence, 300 kilometers northeast from the mouth of the Saguenay. Here, Jeff met up with local divers Sylvain Sirois and Alain Simard. Both claim to have had a recent encounter with a Greenland shark.
When we see it, we say it's a fish, it's a big fish, and we are surprised to meet this guy underwater, but we are more surprised to see how big it can be, all the story and the team of scientists is very big. Way, way bigger than we think.
Alain, c'est plus difficile pour le cargo.
Okay.
But what was Sylvain's big fish? In the blink of an eye, new hope and a new search for the Greenland shark had begun.
For someone to see one on just the one dive, which just wasn't enough to actually set up an expedition and go. This was probably just a fluke encounter. But then when I get this other email from Alain 4 days later, who says he saw potentially the same or different sharks on 3 consecutive dives on the same day, which means that those animals were there probably for the entire week. So why wouldn't they be there now? And that's why we just took off and went for it.
Sylvain and Alain take Jeff to the location where they had both seen the sharks, a secluded bay only minutes up the coast from Baie-Comeau.
Ça, tu l'as vu 3 fois?
Ce requin-là, je l'ai vu 2 fois.
2 fois? L'animal, il faisait quoi?
Il nageait bien tranquillement. C'est comme s'il est venu voir qu'est-ce que j'étais, là. Puis il a vu que j'étais pas, d'après moi, j'étais pas dans son répertoire de manger, ça fait que...
2 sightings at almost the same time in the same place was promising information. But Jeff still wasn't sure. The problem was, the Greenland shark shouldn't be here, swimming in shallow water on a warm June day. Except that this had not been a typical summer. Spring had arrived late, and the water temperature was still unseasonably cold. There was also an unusually large run of bait fish congregating in the bay, both good reasons for the Greenland shark to be here. As Jeff prepared to dive, Chris was still traveling north from Halifax.
The drive to Baie-Comeau, which is about 8 hours and then a couple hours on the ferry, it was sheer torture. I was very excited. I thought maybe this is it. Finally, we've been looking for 5 years. Maybe we finally struck gold.
But at the dive site, Jeff decided he couldn't wait any longer. The sharks Alain and Sylvain observed might already be long gone. After a 5-year search, the anticipation is overwhelming.
The whole time I was just thinking, this might be it. This might be finally the moment where I see this animal, and then I'm not just some cuckoo looking for this magic shark that doesn't exist. Within 2 minutes, Alain tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around, looked at him. He's pointing off to our right. And then I see this massive thing just come out of nowhere, coming straight for us. Part of me just couldn't believe it was a shark. It was probably something else. We don't have to swim to it. It's just coming to us. It's looking at us. It was the Greenland shark.
For 5 years, Jeff Guillen had been on a quest, hunting for the Greenland shark. Now, only minutes after diving into the St. Lawrence River near Baie-Comeau, Quebec, Jeff and local divers Alain Simard and Sylvain Sirois had come face to face with this elusive predator.
Immediately, my heart just started to pump like never before. I was breathing air like a newbie on scuba. I just couldn't believe it. It's like watching TV and you've got your lottery ticket number and each number is coming up one after the other, but it just happened. It was like the 6 numbers at once, boom.
Following the slow-moving 4-meter female, Jeff captured the first pictures ever recorded of a Greenland shark swimming freely in the wild. It was a scientific coup and a personal victory.
So many things were going on at the same time. I mean, it was personal satisfaction, it was validation, it was this huge rock off my shoulders. And I was just so hoping that Chris would be there on the next dive to be able to see this too, because we've really been into this, both of us, since the beginning, and it would have been so unfair for just me to see it. So at the same time, I was really ecstatic about seeing it. I was thinking about my friend.
Finally, Chris had arrived, and at first light, he and Jeff speed to the dive site. Both are anxious, hoping that the Greenland shark is still there.
According to Sylvain, anyway, the Cape One run is exceptionally good this year. You know, we're getting this assemblage of predators, seals, whales, and maybe sharks in the same location, probably all feeding on a common food source, I would think.
And just like Jeff's first encounter, a shark seeks out the divers only meters from the dock.
Within 2 or 3 minutes, we encountered our first shark. When I first saw the shark emerging out of the gloom, I mean, your heart's pumping, not out of fear, out of sheer excitement.
Now Chris too had finally come face to face with the monster of his childhood dreams.
It's like finally you've seen Bigfoot. You've found, you know, the secret graveyard of the elephants. You've found the thing you've looked for years. It's very exciting.
But despite the thrill of their encounter, both divers knew they had a job to do.
In terms of how you feel when you see something like this, there's this tug of war going on inside you. One side of you is, you know, primal. It's like, holy cow, this is a huge animal. You have no idea how it's going to behave when you get close to it. Is it going to turn around and take a piece out of you, or is it going to keep going? You know, I don't want to hurt it. I don't want to push its buttons. I want to spend as much time observing it as possible. You know that this may be the only chance in your life you have. You may only have a couple of minutes and you'll never see this animal again.
This shark is a 2.5 meter male and moves a lot faster than the female Jeff filmed the day before. It swims in a converging course with the divers and changes direction only at the last moment while keeping a sharp eye on these strange intruders. But a sharp eye isn't what they expected. Almost all of the Greenland sharks captured in the Arctic were found to have an obvious handicap.
We went into this thinking that these are the giant line swimming nose model of shark. As long as you get out of the way, you're probably okay. They're slow moving. They're not visual predators. All wrong.
In the past, it was thought that most Greenland sharks were virtually blind, robbed of their eyesight by a parasitic creature called a copepod, which forced the sharks to rely on their noses for dinner. But these sharks had clear eyes, free of parasites, and didn't behave at all like lumbering, blind scavengers.
We found the sharks were very highly maneuverable. They can snap turn on a dime like that. We also found that the sharks basically, when they want to get away from you, they do. They just turn and they book. They take right off and they head for deep water, and we clock them up to 1.4 meters per second, which is faster than a diver can swim. So these sharks are, I think, capable predators.
Chris and Jeff studied the male closely, but the excitement of swimming with Greenland sharks for the very first time had drained their air tanks. They began to surface when suddenly they got another big surprise.
We're tracking the shark and a gauge is going down, and then we see another shark coming in. And I'm out of air. I have to go up. It was the most heartbreaking moment of my diving career when that happened.
After years of frustration, Chris and Jeff could hardly believe their luck, coming face to face with so many sharks in one place at one time.
Hey, incredible, man.
We did it.
Right on, buddy. That was incredible. 2 animals.
But they also knew that success was fleeting. It was time to fill their tanks and get ready for another dive. June 2003 in Baie-Comeau, Quebec. Chris Harvey Clark and Jeff Guélan are making the most of their incredible encounter with Greenland sharks, with 3 contacts in less than 24 hours.
30 feet.
And after 5 frustrating years, they've succeeded in filming them in the wild for the very first time.
I know, it's like an ideal situation. I thought we'd have to go really deep to see these animals. I thought we'd be looking at, 150 feet or something to see them. Find them in 50 or 60 feet is fantastic.
I remember expecting to see it every time now, which is totally contrary to what it was before. On the other dives, never expecting to see anything really. And on these dives, I know I'm going to see him. You're out sitting on the dock having a sandwich, and then we look at the time and say, okay, it's time to go, jump in, and boom, there it is again. And that was just totally incredible.
Now on their 3rd dive, they meet a new 3-meter female. Just like the others, she glides out of the gloom, curious, it seems, to check the divers out.
It was hard to get up close to it. Actually, at one point, when I figured I had enough, I went back over it again, and I just had to touch it, which is really not something I recommend to anyone to do, but I'd just been looking for it for so long, I had to touch it to see if it was real on a personal level.
Although not as aggressive as the male, this female lets the divers know through her body language exactly how close is too close. Depressing her pectoral fins and angling her nose downward, she exhibits the classic defensive posturing of most other shark species.
What it's doing is it's the animal telling you, I don't like your proximity or the way you're behaving, back off.
And I wonder why it would do that, because the Greenland shark has no predator. The only predator it might have is other Greenland sharks, because they will eat each other. And to see the shark do that, and it just naturally did it right away, was surprising.
We we noticed some things that the sharks really didn't like. They disliked having you in the 6 o'clock position directly behind them. And this, I've dived with many other species of sharks. This seems to be a pretty consistent shark trait. They do not like you there.
And like other sharks, this female has a scarred and frayed tail. Scars that could have resulted from tail nipping during courtship, a behavior science knows nothing about. And getting up close and personal with the male shark revealed it was missing one of its 2 sex organs. An indication that the mysterious sex life of the Greenland shark could also be a bit wild. At the beginning of each dive, Jeff and Chris try not to linger near the surface too long. With the bright sun overhead, a diver's silhouette looks a lot like a seal. At this site just a few days ago, local divers had a nerve-wracking shark encounter.
The sharks we saw were in the sort of 3-meter range. Other divers in the area had seen one about 5 meters long. That's getting pretty big. When you're that big, they call you mister.
On the way back up to the surface, one of the sharks actually left the bottom and stalked him all the way to the surface.
The real tension with Greenland sharks is we know nothing about them. So is this animal a scavenger or is it a predator? Are we a meal or are we a competitor?
But no sharks are found near the wreck of this old fishing boat, so Jeff and Chris return to the bay. And here, on their next dive, another large female emerges from the shadows behind them.
They were aware of our presence way before we knew they were there, and yet they still came to check us out. So you could say in a way they're curious. Maybe it's because they normally just rule this domain without any interference from anyone else.
In some cases, they would circle back like that, come around behind you, and you'd be doing this dance with sharks. I joked with Jeff that this was kind of like the ballet, only we didn't know what the prima ballerina was going to do at any given moment.
One thing we definitely learned through these dives is that this animal is not what we read about. Some of the things are true, but other things we can question now because of what we saw. Its feeding habits, its interaction with the environment, interactions with humans. These animals had probably never seen a human before.
Is it migratory, and if so, where does it go to? How old does it get? We do not know how old these animals are. Studies indicate that Greenland sharks grow at about 0.5 centimeter a year. So you do the math. How old is a 3 to 4 meter shark?
Is it possible that this shark is over 300 years old? If it is, it would be the oldest living vertebrate on Earth.
So there's just all these questions, more questions than when we actually jumped in the first time.
The female glides silently away from the divers. It's the last one that they would see on this expedition. Today, they still don't know if they will ever see one again. But their insatiable desire for answers guarantees they will be back.
The old 19th century model of science where you macheted your way through the jungle and found the pygmy chimpanzee colony that everybody suspected but nobody knew where it was, that doesn't happen anymore. Except it does underwater, and that's what happened to us.
Diving into the depths of our planet's last frontier, one more monster has been found out. But the mysteries of the sea continue to endure. And that's nature's guarantee to the explorer in all of us that we will never have a dreamless sleep.
Scoured by the Earth's strongest, most unpredictable winds, the vast emptiness of the North is dangerously unforgiving. Yet explorers have been lured here for centuries. Some came searching for the elusive passage to the west, others simply to challenge themselves in one of the world's harshest environments. Perhaps the greatest of them all was Henry Hudson, who sailed into Hudson Bay in 1611. Although his namesake lives on, Hudson himself vanished in the ice and was never seen again. Seduced by history and adventure, explorers are still drawn north to experience its power from new perspectives. One of those is a man who seeks to soar above the solitude and find freedom in the frozen sky. In Ottawa, the capital of Canada, John Davidson has spent 2 years planning one of the riskiest northern adventures ever attempted.
Winds are blowing 40 to 60 clicks. Santa Kilowak. But listen to this, Monday, clear skies. High of -6, that's not bad.
His goal is to fly a hot air balloon over Hudson Bay for the first time, and do it in the dead of winter.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
I've had lots of opportunity to go to various areas in the world and balloon.
We still got food spots?
Of all the places that I've gone ballooning, and I've done some balloon flights in some pretty great places in the world, this was by far the most attractive to me.
Davidson is a rare breed of pilot who thrives in even rarer air. He's set several high-altitude records and soared higher than Everest. Now, along with his ground crew of John Copeland and Matt Ferry, and second pilot J.P. Lemaire, he's ready to challenge one of the world's most treacherous inland seas. From Ottawa, it will take the team 30 hours of hard driving, 700 miles due north, simply to get to their jump-off point on the coast of James Bay. At a Cree hunting camp, the team makes final preparations for the real journey to begin. For the next 2 months, they'll travel across the ice of Hudson Bay, searching for ideal conditions to launch their balloons. They will tow a heavy load, including a vast array of high technology. This is a world where trouble is easy to find and even harder to escape.
So do you want me to show you on the map where I want to take my plane, and then I'll show you where I'm going to fly?
Yeah, you didn't have to show me, I'll find you.
Georgie Snowboy knows his world well, where wisdom is more precious than technology.
I'll go out, fly out over the flow edge, and then I'll come back and land where you wanted me to land.
Find a place there, around Cape Jones. There's lots of nice place there.
I'll catch
but
up.
watch the rocks, eh?
1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 10. 10. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh yeah, baby, I'll take the yellow Argo.
Ice on the bay is 4 feet thick, but traveling on it is still hazardous and necessary. On land, the snow is too deep and the coastline too rocky. Their Argo snow machines can haul 1,000 pounds and will even float if the ice cracks under them. "80 miles north of Seal River, James and Hudson Bays meet at Cape Jones, the site of an abandoned radar station. Frozen in time, it is an omen for another Cold War that is just beginning.
So this is Hudson Bay on our right and James Bay on our left.
No, this is the Hudson's Bay, and this is the James Bay over here.
James Bay over here, yeah. And how far out do you think the flow edge is? Out maybe 3 miles?
No more than that.
A little more than that?
No, we'll see about 4.
John Davidson loves to fly. To scout ahead for the thin margin between stable ice and fatal open water, he uses a unique aircraft called a power parachute.
I don't know why I'm comfortable in the air. I'm scared of heights, but I enjoy being up in the air. If I get frustrated, I make a business mistake or whatever. None of them are a care in my mind if I'm up in the air. But as soon as I'm back to the ground again, all the problems come back.
Yeah, this is the same kind of clutches on a skidoo, right?
Davidson faces a serious problem.
George might know.
In the jarring cold, a clutch has failed, and the closest parts are 1,000 miles away.
No, we're all going to Great Trail River and leave the machine here.
And come back tonight.
Come back tonight and we pick it up and bring everything down. That's the fastest way. What's the use of waiting here?
The Cree elder is right. The team has no choice but to head southeast to the town of Kujarapik. It's a 70-mile detour and a critical delay, but the town does have an airport, allowing parts to be shipped in. Located at the mouth of the Great Whale River, Kujarapik stands at the junction point between the ancient lands of the Cree and Inuit.
I don't think there's any point.
Old or young, people here know the North as a trickster, an unpredictable spirit with many faces and many moods. A character Davidson's team has only begun to understand.
Is he loading? Is this unloaded or loading? It doesn't seem like it's a very good tracking system because we don't know where it is. You mean, is it worth looking in the plane again for a little box?
There is no box in this plane stopping in Great Whale.
Not in Inuktitut, not in POV, not in Great Whale. So that's the only destinations this plane was going to.
With his spare parts lost, Davidson is stuck in a world where life is dictated not by men, but by wind, ice, and the tides of Hudson Bay. Finally, John Davidson's spare parts have arrived.
Skype you?
All right. How can I get it?
We have to sign the waiver.
I'll sign anything you want.
The repair turns out to be surprisingly easy, but after days of waiting and watching good weather come and go, the team is anxious to move on before the North plays another trick. Their route will shadow the east coast of Hudson Bay, 100 miles north to the Richmond Gulf.
The first breakdown was a setback, and that's all it was. Absolutely knew that the trip was going to go forward. We were still fresh in the trip, so I knew that we were just going to take this as a challenge and move on.
The Richmond Gulf is one of the most dynamic ecosystems in all of Hudson Bay. Savage winds and swirling tides keep the water open all winter, ideal for wildlife, and for John Davidson to fly a balloon.
Is all broke open? Yeah. Two broke open. So I got 5 more of that too. Okay, let's look at our priorities. The priorities are, I want to fly over the Gulf. That's one of the reasons we came here with the power parachute.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to do if the weather
allows it, right?
Okay.
That's the first thing. So right now we're working between here and the Richmond Gulf. And do you feel comfortable going in that backslide?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You don't want to make a mistake. You go in the Gulf slide and you're going to go for a swim, right?
After establishing their base camp, the team leaves immediately to scout the terrain. In his power parachute, Davidson looks down on a diverse landscape of canyons and barrens, open water, and dangerous ice. On the ground, his team intends to get an even closer look.
See how fast the tide is, eh, boys?
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's really fast.
And then if you look up there, you can see where the Richmond Gulf and the Hudson Bay meet, and that's where you see the two lines. So if you imagine how low it would go, the current would be dragging along and then brushing up with another body of water.
Yeah, at that point, there's got to be some serious undertows.
Seriously.
Created by a watershed the size of New York State, billions of gallons of fresh water have carved an escape to the Gulf through deep granite chasms. Beneath its churning surface, hardy plant life anchors the food chain for an abundance of wildlife. But not for people. Both the Cree and Inuit fear this place, leaving this rugged, uninhabited land to nature and the spirits of the North. The team's own guides have refused to come here, forcing them to find their own way in this uncharted wilderness. And even in the sky, it's easy to get lost.
I think you came out of the river valley and went left. There's no other way that you would see the open water of the Richmond Gulf, and you guys told me you saw the open water.
That's correct.
Well, then you had to have gone north to see the open water. I can see the river valley from here. It's completely flat. It's a natural way to go with hardly any trees.
The team has another problem. Their GPS locators are back at camp, a mistake that could spell disaster. But on this day, their luck holds.
All right.
From the edge of a granite canyon 1,000 feet deep, 5 miles wide and 40 miles long, the balloonists finally confront the challenge ahead.
Unbelievable place. Ballooning over this would be absolutely amazing, eh?
If you're coming across here and you started tailing off left, the worst thing that could happen is you land in the bay over there.
Yeah, you know what kind of air would be hitting you as you came down and landing there? You want it to be pretty calm.
To fly a balloon anywhere on Earth demands perfect conditions. But in the North, perfect weather is a cruel joke, especially in the Richmond Gulf, where some of the planet's strongest winds have been recorded.
When you guys were retrieving me, you got really close. And close wasn't good enough, right? Because there was a couple hills in between. We were within, let's say, a quarter mile. And we were talking to each other. Would a flare not have just said, well, I know kind of where I gotta go, whether I gotta go around this way or that way, there he is.
Yeah, that would work too.
Does that sound reasonable?
Yep.
All right.
Tomorrow, if the North agrees, they'll fly. Early morning is the best time to fly a hot air balloon. the team releases a small balloon called a pieball to check conditions at 1,000 feet.
That is amazing how stable that is. Hasn't pulled hardly anywhere.
Oh, it's shocking now, maybe.
Yeah, it might be pulling to the right there now.
Wind velocity and direction look ideal. Now there's no time to waste.
You have to do a balloon flight when the weather says to do it. You don't do a balloon flight based on whether you're tired or not tired or whether the equipment's ready or not ready. You do a balloon flight when the wind says it's ready to do a balloon flight.
Hundreds of pounds of silk are inflated with propane burners. It's a frantic ritual they've practiced countless times. As soon as Davidson and second pilot J.P. Lemaire are airborne, they make instant history, flying the first hot air balloons over the Richmond Gulf. Finally, they're in their element.
Okay, I'm gonna have some fun with the water. You're gonna follow, and when you get down low in the water, I'll probably go up.
Hot air balloons have a distinct advantage over fixed-wing aircraft. They're more forgiving when they decide to come down, but not in the Richmond Gulf.
So I finally got myself in a spot where I don't want to land anymore. I want to enjoy it, but I don't want to land it. 190 feet. Dropping 150 feet a minute. Nice and gentle. Here we go. We're gonna do a touch and go on some Arctic ice. What do you think?
Although the water is cold enough to kill in less than a minute, Davidson attempts to dip his balloon's basket in the frigid soup. A very risky maneuver.
Big problem, eh? Because we're headed right at the mountains, man.
Unpredictably, the wind has shifted, forcing the balloon off its flight path toward a forbidding wall of cliffs. Sensing the danger ahead, Davidson knows he now has to land as soon as possible.
Anywhere off the water, I guess, is a fantastic spot. It's okay, here we go. Maybe 10 seconds.
Once again, Davidson must gamble with the elements and land safely on solid ice. J.P. Lemaire in the second balloon plays it safer and heads for solid ground. After weeks of cold frustration, the warmth of success is a welcome relief. But their journey is far from over. It's a new day and a new adventure. Ahead lies 120 miles of ice between the Richmond Gulf and the team's next destination, the village of Sanikiloak in the remote Belcher Islands.
I don't know if this is actually on the best
They
way.
may be the first white men to ever attempt the ice crossing alone, a challenge the team had not planned on.
We arranged for a guide for a while, but the guide had problems with his equipment, which we may have too, but he ran into his problems with his equipment early, and those problems couldn't be solved, and as a result, we're without a guide. We're without anybody.
You don't think we're making it sound a kilowatt?
Not today, boys. Not today.
We'd love to make it in one day, but it's probably unrealistic. We're probably gonna have to be camping on the ice.
The worst thing that could happen is it takes us 3 days to cross, or we come back here and the expedition ends.
Looking out from the safety of the coast, the ice of Hudson Bay is a vast and very flat desert. But without guides, the team has no way of knowing what really lies beyond the horizon line. Soon enough, they find out. Only a few miles out, they drive headlong into an icy hell.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Glorious weather right now. But we've gone all of about 2 miles.
Buckled, jagged ice the size of boulders stretches north, south, and west for miles, creating a formidable obstacle. To go through it or around it could take days, if their fuel holds out.
Clutch broken off. Clutch broken? Yeah.
After battling the ice for hours, the decision is an easy one when an Argo breaks down. Now there's no choice, except a hasty retreat to the coast. By the time they return, even the weather has turned on them. Another vicious reminder of the North's unforgiving power. The storm has battered the camp for 3 days. But when it breaks, the team has visitors. Inuit hunters returning to the Belcher Islands have brought new spare parts from Kujarapik and agreed to guide them across the ice bridge.
These guys are going to travel at night. I've traveled at night before, and there's no problem. It is bloody cold. All of a sudden, an hour after sunset, it gets cold.
The Inuit have wandered the North for centuries, and today their survival still depends on an instinctive respect for the many faces of the land they call home. But even the Inuit rely on more than intuition to find their way. Veterans of the North's unpredictable moods, they're reluctant to camp on the ice overnight. The safest way is to get across as fast as possible.
I was firmly against going across at night. I did not want to do that. What did come of it was that 12, 16 hours of sitting in a machine, we started to hallucinate. And all of a sudden, instead of being in this great big open expanse of ice and ridges, you were actually starting to travel up a canyon.
By midnight, they're over halfway, but still 60 miles from the nearest solid ground. Daylight brings with it a welcome sight, the rocky coast of the Belcher Islands. Turning north, they reach Sanakilowak 2 hours later. Physically and mentally exhausted, the team heads directly for the only hotel in town. A series of pre-built trailers that still look a lot like heaven.
Let's not worry about anything. Let's just go inside and get some sleep.
Typical of the North, Sanikiluaq is a place of extremes. A modern village isolated on ancient volcanic rock. By necessity, the Inuit are a nomadic people, but Sanikiluaq is unique. Surrounded by churning water in summer and locked in ice for the rest of the year, they rely solely on Hudson Bay for survival. In the town's cafe, John Davidson is surprised to meet Marty Obard, a wildlife biologist here to study the North's most fearsome predator, the polar bear.
And once again, I mean, it is a very
Obard is
easy
even
and
more
safe
surprised
way to fly
when
over.
Davidson offers him a chance to observe them from the sky, if he can find them.
John, based on the movements of our satellite collared bears, it looks like, if you see here, the bears that were collared in James Bay, in late winter, they tend to move up to the south end of the Belchers. And based on that, one opportunity would be off the south end of the Belchers.
Yeah, the South Camp?
Yeah, depending on where the bears were at the moment.
Their plan is to travel south to a point in the Belcher Islands where areas of open water called polynias are located, and the bears are known to hunt.
Oh, great. That'll make it a little shorter. Yeah.
Well, I think Marty's he likes a little adventure as well. He wasn't going to be difficult to get up in the balloon. Here he had an opportunity to see the land that his bears travel over.
Leaving Sanikiluaq at dawn, their route weaves 60 miles through an archipelago of more than 1,000 windswept islands. Their destination is a remote hunting camp, located about as far south as you can go in the Belchers, and the only permanent shelter of its kind for hundreds of square miles. The journey takes 10 hours, but as soon as he gets there, Davidson is anxious to fly.
Tonight, a very few light flurries, winds northwesterly 20 to 40 kilometers.
The Inuit know this world well, but they've never seen anything like a power parachute, or the man who flies it. Davidson heads directly for the closest polynia, hoping to sight his first bear. In this frozen northern world, the open waters of a polynia defy the laws of nature. Derived from a Russian word meaning open field, polynias are kept open by the action of prevailing winds and swift currents. Mysterious but vital oases for marine life, they attract a host of seals, fish, waterfowl, and bears. On the surface, the land appears empty and barren. The Inuit, however, know better. To the Inuit, polynias are an ecological supermarket where fishing nets can be cast and Arctic char hauled up even in the dead of winter. Like John Davidson, Marty Obard has traveled a long way. And he knows somewhere out there, a great predator is prowling his vast domain.
What? Probably. Get comfortable. Get my scoop.
For only the second time since their journey began over 6 weeks ago, the North has again turned generous, and John Davidson's team is ready to fly.
guys.
For Marty Obard, his first balloon flight is an even rarer experience, since this is the first time anyone has ever attempted to fly a balloon over the Belcher Islands of Hudson Bay. Soaring over jagged clefts of igneous rock, the violent volcanic origins of the islands are seen for the first time from a new perspective.
Fox tracks down there. And hare tracks. He went right up the side of that. Look.
Yeah, it's quite a
amazing.
climb, eh? What a beautiful day to be flying in Belcher Island.
Davidson has planned it perfectly. A gentle breeze eases them out over the bay. Conditions in the air are perfect. But on the ice, no sign of any bear activity.
And no sign of tracks anywhere around those Polynias.
Those are good size though, eh?
From 1,000 feet, the bay ice appears infinite and ominous. But Davidson and Obard are both too busy to sense any danger.
See the two little islands down here, John?
Yeah.
And then about halfway between the second little island and the big one over there, there's a wavy line. Then it seems to split.
Obard thinks he sees movement on the ice, and they move in closer. The Polynia appears empty.
I certainly have a greater respect for the hunters here, you know. There have been years they've pulled in 25 bears in a week.
Even at 100 feet, the abstract ice provides perfect camouflage. They could be looking for a needle in a haystack the size of Texas.
That'd be nice. Nice and gentle and quiet.
Looming ahead is the last finger of land before the Belcher Islands dissolve into the bay.
Under 5 miles.
Suddenly, the wind speed picks up. If Davidson can't land the balloon soon, it will soar back over the ice and out of range for his ground crew to retrieve them safely.
Here we go, boys. It's a good thing you secured all your stuff, Ian. Holy jumping.
You want me to take that camera?
No, you should probably just get out if you can.
Are you gonna put that away?
If you can.
The wind has brought with it another surprise. Warmer air temperatures and swirling sea currents are working quickly to break up the ice around the islands. Spring has arrived sooner than expected, creating a dangerous dilemma for Davidson and his team. If they leave now to cross the thinning ice back to the coast, it could break up at any time and anywhere. But if they delay, they could be stranded here, unable to finish the expedition. By next morning, the team's sleds are loaded and ready to go. The Inuit are willing to risk the crossing if they leave now. They head due east over ice that appears safe and solid, hoping it will stay that way for another 120 miles. But then, another mechanical breakdown.
The chain is loose on the top, right? Yeah, the front chain, the very front chain. When you brake, what's happening, I think, is a link of the chain is jamming against the little square frame. I think that we're into a camp overnight, for sure. Kelty camp. No comments on that one?
Well, I say it's noon or 12:30. Let's just go. Let's see how far we get. We'll reassess at 6.
Okay.
An overnight delay on suspect ice is not an option. Fortunately, the Argo repair is an easy one, and the caravan quickly moves on.
About 20 miles out from the shoreline, we went across a crack. It wasn't a really big crack, but it hadn't been there on our way to the Belchers. So I think the urgency started right then. You know, it was going to be a bit of a race to get back, depending on how the weather was going to treat us.
"6 p.m. comes and goes. They've driven hard for over 8 hours. And with the light failing, there's no thought of stopping. By sunset, the race is on. 60 miles of ice still lies ahead. And another midnight crossing. After traveling for 30 hours across open sea ice, the last 10 in the black of night, the expedition has made it back safely to the east coast of Hudson Bay. Battered by a late winter storm and plagued by exhaustion, the team has crumbled into camp. Outside their tent, it's hard to believe that spring has arrived. All they can do now is wait for the North's fury to subside. By next morning, the snow has eased off, allowing them to prepare for the last long trek home. With time and now speed of the essence, there will be no more flying.
I mean, the propane weighs quite a bit in the bottles, and we're burning it off to reduce the weight of carrying it on the land. But for a balloonist, it really is. I mean, I've hauled that propane all the way from here to Santa Kilowak and back, so that's, I don't know how many hundreds of miles, but now I'm on my way back, almost home, and I'm burning it off.
Day 50 of the expedition sees the wind off the bay reach a new intensity. With their food and patience running out, the team decides it must push south, even though the visibility is 0 and the wind chill minus 40 degrees. It will be a 300-mile marathon from the Richmond Gulf back to Chisisibi, the beginning and hopefully their journey's end. Mile after mile, the wind tears at the expedition until suddenly, as quickly as it began, it stops, revealing another fact of northern life.
Poor little seal. Probably won't find his mother.
Wait here for a bear.
Either a wolf or a fox or somebody will get it, or a polar bear. What are we gonna do? We're gonna let nature run its course. I feel bad for the poor little guy.
But with a little luck, this seal pup might survive. Sooner than later, the bay ice will melt, giving it a chance to swim for home. It's an option that doesn't bode well for Davidson and his team. With winter now officially behind them, the further south they go, the thinner the ice gets. After 2 punishing months and over 2,000 miles, both man and machine begin a final, desperate race.
Our mind was set on just get there any way we can. And, you know, the water in some places was getting over a foot deep, but I can just imagine what it looked like. Yellow Argo in the lead with one broken tire in the front, pulling a powered parachute that was on pretty much full blast, pulling a broken Argo in the back.
Day 61 of the expedition brings them within sight of the James Bay coast. Without a moment to spare, they've made it back.
I'm drenched, absolutely drenched. I look dry up here. My feet are drenched.
The team load their vehicles quickly, anxious to return to a more predictable world. On the road south, the vanishing snow is a sobering reminder of how close the expedition came to a disastrous end. The early spring has transformed the face of the North, its unforgiving nature now melting into 1,000 rivers, which will power eastern North America for another summer to come.
I think that the North was kind to us on this trip, and I forget the exact saying that somebody said about the North at one time, you know, that in the first couple of years you learn a lot, and then the next 10 years you realize that you have way more to learn. Certainly that's the truth.
Like many who have come before, they leave the North as they found it, an eternal magnet to the explorer's soul.